button on there. You're all set. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. All righty, I'll call the October 23rd Scituate School Committee meeting to order at 6:01. And let's see, before we begin, the Scituate School Committee is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. All right, we will start with public comment. If anyone tonight would want to just state their name and address for the record, that would be appreciated.
Scott Greenbaum, 40 David Road.
Well, come on up. Yeah, up front. Come on up to the microphone.
So the folks online.
Yeah. Just for sound.
You turn that
Sound
button
issues.
to the left. So, yeah.
It's working. Scott Greenbaum, so I've been the sailing coach for the last 5 or 6 years. I've lost track now. We have an issue that's coming up is with transportation. We used to be able to get a school bus. Obviously, I understand that school buses are really limited because there's lack of school bus drivers. 4 years ago, we were able to use school vans. 3 years ago, that stopped. I think I understand why. It's been explained that the vans did not meet safety requirements. They don't have seat belts. They didn't have roof hatch, and I learned recently they don't have the rear door that is required. So that was 3 years ago. We have been bootstrapping together to get transportation for the team. It's difficult to get any of the parents. We have last year we had 9 traveling sailors, 3 of them in single family households. The other ones, they have high-powered jobs, they're not around most of the time. This year it's gonna be a specific problem because 4 of our meets, we did home and homes with Nantasket, which is Cohasset, and Hull High School, and NDA Norwell, which is another team. Well, Salem are both, one or both of them may not exist next year. One's lost a coach, the other one of the coaches left and they're having trouble with boats. So when we sailed locally, this side of 3A, the senior high school kids, I have enough confidence that they can handle getting to those areas. But next year, we're gonna have meets. We're gonna have to go to Sharon, up to Lake Scituate. We might have to go on the North Shore. I'm not gonna ask a high school student, to drive a car full of kids there to someplace. And so I know that the business administrator, we talked about this, we try to get us 1 or 2 buses. Unfortunately, our scheduling is much more difficult than most other teams because if it's really windy, we have to cancel at the last minute and then reschedule. So talking to the AD, he said other small teams also have some similar issues. So I really just wanted to point out to you that this issue should be addressed at some point. I noticed that you went from 4 vans to 3 in your budget, but it is a critical issue if we're gonna have varsity teams and give the students an opportunity to compete in their varsity sports. Without transportation, it gets very difficult. Second issue, handout. Board members. When the sailing team was established, new boats were put together, there was a contract, are you one short?
No.
There was a contract signed between the town of Scituate and the school board. I have a 2018 copy of it. Since then, it's kind of been skipped as a copy. Talking to some people, I think the first one was signed in 2016. It is poorly put together, but the basic premise is that the high school would help maintain the boats. And there has never been any money budgeted for this. This last year, the AD put in $2,000 and that was taken out. It created enough animosity between, it was part of it, and not probably all of it, between the rec department and the high school that they built docks that we can't use to run the team on. So I think, requesting that so we can build rapport again with everybody and keep a team running, we should be budgeting the money to help repair the boats. And another issue has come up. The boats are stored in the Historic Society's shed at the Maritime Center. And the Historic Society has asked for $1,000 rent a year. And the schools should be responsible for, they're gonna be asked for half of it. And I think that's, if we're gonna use the facilities, we should do that. The Historic Society wants to charge rent so they can maintain the building, because it gets a little bit of damage. The third issue that I have, when I started this job, I was told that this was a varsity team. My most recent meeting with the AD said this is not a varsity team, we're a club team, because we're not MIAA. We have 3 other governing boards, Mass Bay League, New England Collegiate Sailing Association, and the ISSA, which is the National Sailing Association. I don't know exactly what guidelines are, but I would think that it's the board that decides if a sport is a varsity sport, not which ruling body is, and unfortunately AD has a little bit of a conflict of interest since he's a director of MIAA, and he probably wants to, he's protecting 2 sides. So I'd like to understand, make sure that we are considered as a varsity team and have all the privileges that any varsity team would have, so that we can continue doing this, because there are some really great students that participate and they enjoy it. And the last 2 years, we've had 2 of our graduates compete the NCAA championship top level. So that's all I wanted to say. If there's any questions.
Thank you very much for your comments. I will say I am the school committee representative for the recreation commission. So that has come up, I know for a fact, in our meetings, just about the storage and the relationships. And so just wanted to validate that, that has come up for sure in conversation, but not as a main topic, and should clearly be. We do have a policy, thankfully now, over the years, we've gotten to a point where we do have a policy on the varsity sports process. And so there's definitely multiple components to your public comment. And I think we can work together with Superintendent Burkhead and Dr. Rabb and sort of formulate a really cohesive, factual plan, and then share that. I will work with that, and we'll work on all of this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so let's see if we have any virtual hands raised here. Do not see any currently. Okay. All right. No, nobody else in person, so we'll move to we'll move to our student report with Louisa Kinsley and David Murphy. Hello. Hi. Welcome, Louisa, to your first school committee meeting.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Louisa Kinsley, and I'm a senior at the high school. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm really excited to work with you all this year. To start, PSATs were on Tuesday, October 17th for sophomores, and Wednesday, October 18th for juniors. This was the first year of the digital PSAT, so students were able to test on their school-issued Chromebooks. And the guidance staff reported that it all went very smoothly, so that was great. The school also welcomed 23 French students last week from Soucy-en-Brie, and they went on some excursions during the school week and spent some time in our classes, and all the students loved having them here. The principal's leadership council continues to work with administration to improve attendance and school culture at the high school. And compared to last year, there are an average of 16 fewer absences per day and 24 fewer tardies per day. And Mr. Loranger has really been instrumental in helping improve attendance, so that's been awesome this year. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock, we'll be having our Scituate High School Fall Concert in the Performing Arts Center. And on November 17th, the high school will be having a guest speaker named Aaron Polanski, who will be speaking on the importance of showing up and being present. And lastly, one of our girls volleyball captains, Sumner Harris, hit 1,000 career assists last Tuesday in a match against Plymouth South. And that's a huge milestone because she's the only Scituate High School player who's ever hit that goal also. That was awesome.
Well then, picking up on that accomplishment, the College Board has announced SHS has been named to the Advanced Placement AP School Honor Roll, earning a silver distinction. Principal Loranger stated that we cannot be more proud of the staff and students at SHS for achieving this great honor. Thank you to our wonderful educators and hardworking students for achieving this outstanding honor. And thank you, Mr. Loranger, and the rest of the school administrators for all your hard work and dedication here at SHS. You all aren't doing such a bad job yourselves. Scituate recently named its Sailors of the Month. These are Max Allen, Lucas Henderson, Luke Hanley, Christopher D'Amelio, Mr. Kovac, and Miss McGloin were all recognized for their positive influence at Scituate High School. Congratulations to these outstanding sailors. We've got some exciting news on the athletics front as well. Girls cross country, field hockey, and SHS golf team are now officially league champions, which is an incredible accomplishment. Girls cross country remains undefeated, while field hockey and golf boast an impressive record of 10-6-1 and 15-3 respectively. Congratulations to our Scituate athletes for these major achievements. Don't let this take away from our other sports, however, who are also putting in an amazing effort. Currently, football is 4-3, boys soccer 4-7-4, girls soccer 6-6-4, boys cross country 1-3, and volleyball 12-6. Keep it up, everyone. We love to watch you all compete. Last Friday, Scituate's MIAA student ambassadors attended the Student Leadership Summit with our trainer Chris Alves in Westborough, Massachusetts. This group included sophomore Brady Stanridge, junior Jane Ryan, and senior David Murphy. Those guys sounds interesting. There, they listened to various speakers who presented on a variety of topics, including mental health, qualities of athletic leadership, and how to be a good teammate. As someone fortunate enough to attend, I even got to meet someone who was a former wrestler in my exact same weight class, which was pretty awesome. Overall, the conference was extremely informative, and it was fascinating to listen to the experiences of everyone there. College Scoop Night was also held on October 10th, where SHS students and families learned the ins and outs of the college admissions process. The panel included admissions officers from Babson College, BC, WPI, Suffolk University, Curry College, and UMass Amherst. The event is currently available for viewing on Scituate TV for all those interested. Finally, the Military and Career Opportunities Group of Massachusetts will sponsor a second event on Saturday, November 18th at 10 a.m. at the Scituate Performing Arts Center. Representatives from, here we go, West Point, the Naval Academy, the Air Force Academy, the Coast Guard Academy, Mass Maritime, ROTC programs from all branches, the National Guard, the Marine Corps, Scituate Police and Fire Departments, military prep schools, and the U.S. Armed Services will all be present. They will be there to share information on the wide-ranging and life-changing education and career opportunities available in their respective fields. It's also important to emphasize that this is not a recruiting event, but an informational one. Parents of the military men and women will be on hand to answer questions and share their experiences. Students and families throughout the state are invited to attend. And that's it. It's wonderful to see you all again, and everyone have a great rest of your evening, and I guess we'll see you on November 6th.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions for our?
I wanted to ask a question,
Yeah.
can I?
Sure.
I wanted to ask a question about the attendance. That's something we've been talking a little bit about. And you said that it's improved definitely, which is awesome to hear. I was just curious if you have any more details or thoughts on what exactly is working. Is it just like awareness in general, or are there specific things that you feel like are making a difference?
Well, to start, Mr. Laranger, almost every day goes in the announcements and like reports how many tardies we had or attendance or absences we had that day, which has been awesome. And every day he's just really pushing attendance. So he'll walk through the hallways and talk about it or talk about it on the announcements. So that's just been great. He's really just been pushing it a lot, which has been awesome. I think students are really responding to that. And then I think just as a whole, like moving out of COVID, I feel like it's becoming more like normal for attendance and stuff. Like as we're kind of getting past that, it's been however many years now. It's I think just getting like steadily better from that. Also.
Can I also add some personal experience? I saw a few days ago, or not even a few days ago, just throughout this time, I feel like students have been way more like, urgent trying to get to school. I've seen a lot more people like, it's an 8:14 and instead of maybe walking, they're jogging and running to school to make it on time so they don't have to worry about being included on that tardy list. So I think there's a lot more awareness now of people of trying to get to school on time and being there in the classroom.
Thank you so much. That's helpful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Superintendent Burkhead, leadership report.
Good evening, everyone. Just want to thank David and Louisa for just sharing great news. What a way to kick off a meeting, just answering the questions. It's really nice to hear about the attendance too. I'll be talking a little bit about that, obviously, the goals, but it's really important and it's good to hear that we're seeing real life improvement in that and effort. So thank you guys. Well, we're in the thick of things with our new Cushing Hadley building project. There's a lot happening and we want to make sure the community is up to speed and especially the committee. We know can't make all the meetings, so we've invited our leads from our architect, Don Walter, and our owner's project manager, OPM, Mr. John Lemieux from Vertex tonight to come and give a brief presentation and answer all your questions to keep this thing on the front burner. Also hot off the press, we've been working really hard on the website to keep that very updated, to take feedback from the community. And so that's live right now, the updated version, if you look on there. And I know the committee had a really good idea, and I'm going to give you all credit, because I think you all at some point said, right on that homepage for the MSBA is the timeline, big visual right there. And then there's pictures of the current school condition, a nice slide deck of that. Oh, look at this, this is AI. Yeah, AI. I like when it makes me look good. When it makes me look bad, I don't like it. So, yeah, thank you, Ms. Driscoll. But please go on and see that sit.org under community, and there's all things new school on there. And want to welcome Don and John tonight. I think I'm good.
There we go. All right, good evening, everybody. John Lemieux from Vertex, as Superintendent said, here to just run through kind of a 30,000 foot view of where we are with the project. Really excited with the progress that's taken place. Can I see the next slide? So we're going to start with the overall project schedule. You can see our little red line. Oh, yeah. That's great. You can see, that's right a little closer.
Sorry, we have to really project our voices here.
All good, all good. So this bar graph represents the overall project schedule. As you can see, we are in the process right now of working on the schematic design for the project. It's really the first set of detailed design drawings and specifications and cost estimate for the preferred solution that was submitted as part of the PSR report that was submitted some time ago from the MSBA. You know, an exciting milestone takes place on Wednesday of this week when the MSBA actually officially invites Scituate to submit the schematic design, basically opening up the window for the project team to do that. Don and his team have been working on it ever since we kind of submitted the PSR, but to get that official nod is an important milestone. That process will take place through February, at which point we will have the, actually, why don't we go to the next slide real quick, because that's a little more detailed for the process that we're in. You can see basically the third bar down talks about the schematic design process. You know, we've got our next public meeting coming up. How is it? Probably right now. Thank you. December 6th. I guess I need glasses for far away now too. December 6th and February 7th, which will be great updates. Again, all of our building committee meetings are open to the public. We have these updates that we share with you here. But the public meetings are really a chance to get into some of the background and understand kind of what's taken place between now and then. That submission will go into the MSBA at the end of February. Roughly the 28th is the deadline to be considered for the April meeting. And you can see that the April meeting on the 24th of 2024, that's very similar to the meeting we're talking about going to the MSBA this week. But that's probably the biggest milestone, because that's the one where the MSBA says, okay, Scituate, we've gotten all of your information, we've looked at your plans, we've looked at your budget, here's the grant that we will go ahead and agree that we'll pay, the maximum facilities grant. And it's at that point that all of the, when we submitted in February, that's where we have a good indication within 2 or 3 weeks of that submission before the board meeting that says, all right, now we know what the grant is. So when people say, well, what's the number? That's the time we actually know the number, because at that point, everything's been submitted. They've checked everything off. They've given their feedback. We've gone back and forth with them a couple of times. So we know what that number is. And that enables us to be able to go to the town meeting at the end of April and to a debt exclusion vote in May to basically then, after the MSBA says, yes, we've looked at this, and now they say, you have a certain amount of time to get back to us and prove to us that you as the citizens say yes. And then once we get through all of that, you might go back one slide. Then we have the whole rest of the project. So those first 2 bars are really, just the beginning, right? And with an approved vote at the board meeting, we would then go into basically another year of design, and then a couple of months of bidding, and then into construction. So it's, as I think we talked about in one of our first meetings here, it is a long process and a long relationship. So we're really excited for where we are. And I think with that, I'll turn it over to Don to give you some real specifics about where we are.
Thank you, John. Go to the next slide, Heidi. So this phase that we've moved into now, schematic design, is hugely important. As you heard John say, it's where you get to finalize the cost, right? So we need to develop this project in enough detail that the costs that we develop, these are the building, site construction costs, and all of the soft costs which make up the project costs, right? Because that's what MSBA will agree to the town on, and will establish the reimbursement rate moving forward. So we've been working hard with user groups, teachers and staff, getting into some of the detail of each room so we know what goes in there. We're starting to talk about materials within the building because what you have on the outside of the building, whether it's brick, metal panel, wood, some combination thereof, all that has to be factored in as we develop these costs for the schematic design. But what's really important is, if you remember the process we've gone through, we started with initial visioning, we did a lot of options, we went to a few options, and we're now down to this last option that you see up on the screen. And this is the proposed site plan on the Hatherley site. The existing building, I know it's probably challenging to see, but there is a dashed line on the right side where there's a gray parking lot. That's the existing Hatherley building. So if you recall, we worked hard to make sure we minimize the disruption of what's happening at that school on a daily basis. So the new school will not interfere with that daily activity, except there'll be a construction project going on, but we won't have to move students around. The other challenge that we had that we mitigated quite well is in the upper left corner, lower left corner, there were some wetlands discovered. So we've worked hard to keep ourselves out of the buffers to make sure that the building will work. And then the other thing that's really exciting about this particular building, I'll show you the plan in a minute, is that there are two exterior courtyards inside the building, the perimeter of the building, one for the lower grade students, one for the upper grade students. And it's really exciting what we think is going to happen in there, between some outdoor education, some group learning, some play, an extension of the cafeteria perhaps at one end. So that's one of the drivers for this particular design. The other thing that's important with any site plan is making sure that we mitigate traffic. So on this site, and the diagrams that you see on the right-hand side, we have separate and distinct pre-kindergarten drop-off. So students can be brought, parent or guardian can park and walk the student into the building. That's the blue loop that you see. The next one over to the right is the bus circulation. So you come in off of Ann Bonham and you circulate clockwise around the entire site to keep the buses separate from the cars, which are in the lower left-hand quadrant there, where parents or guardians would come in and loop around the larger parking lot. And there's enough room to get, I believe we counted upwards of almost 150 cars off the street. So we want to make sure we don't have traffic issues on Ann Vinyl twice a day. And we're looking at doing 2 exit lanes leading back out onto Ann Vinyl. And then we have emergency vehicle access moving around, similar to, that's in the red, similar to the bus circulation. And we have already met with public safety twice in DPW, and they're pretty happy with the direction we're going in. So that gives you a sense of the site plan. I'm gonna go into a little more detail with that because it's kind of exciting what's going on. Go to the next slide, Heidi. Thank you. This was developed in concert with our landscape architect. And what we're trying to do is develop a building that just doesn't sit in the site, but becomes part of the site. So there are certainly opportunities out there for outdoor play with age-appropriate play structures on the site, and I won't get into the detail. We've created, we recreated the Flannery Field, you can see in the upper right-hand corner. We've created opportunities for accessible paths to walk around the perimeter of the site, whether it be for wellness or discovery, because we also have educational components or discovery areas where perhaps we look at our stormwater areas and students go out there and do educational projects. So there's a lot that's going to be happening on this site that we're really excited about. And all of this happening at the same time while we're very cognizant that we're in a residential neighborhood. And we're trying to work with the scale. The building has been pulled further away from the neighborhood than the existing building is now. And we're gonna be looking at materials in a building that's gonna be a good neighbor. When it's all said and done, it's a big building, it's going to be a good neighbor as it relates to scale and materials. So then quickly just moving into the floor plans, the first floor, this has been rotated 180 degrees or 90 degrees. You can see the main entrance with a red arrow at the bottom, and what's nice about the way this plan is laid out, the administration with eyes on the front door is immediately to the right, but the library media center is to the left, and the idea is to have, when people come or students come to the building, they see education on display. So you walk into the building and you see activity happening as it relates to education. You walk in the door, you see art, there's OT, PT, there's music, and there's the gymnasium, the cafeteria, and the kitchen. So right down the center of the building are all the core facilities, and it's set up such that the rest of the building can be closed off. You can have after hours activities in any of those spaces without having to open the full building if you choose not to. And then just in general, with the way the plan is laid out, to the left are the lower grades. You can see kindergarten and pre-kindergarten there with their outdoor courtyard. And all around the outside edge of that courtyard are extended learning spaces. So students can actually be outside their classrooms in some smaller learning environments with some natural light coming in from those courtyards. And go to the right side of the building, same thing. You can see grades 4 and 5 depicted here with an upper level courtyard. All the pink spaces that you see in there, those are all special education and small group spaces distributed throughout the building. There's not a wing, it's distributed throughout. The students are integrated into the regular activities and day of school. So you'll see that on both floors. I'll go to the second floor right now quickly. You can see if pre-K on the left, pre-K and K are down below, grades 1 and 2 are above that with views looking down into that courtyard. They have extended learning spaces also, and then grade 3 is shown on the upper right-hand side with some lower roof in the front. So with that, say thank you and see if there are any questions.
Questions, anyone in the committee cast?
No, first of all, thank you very much. I think I saw the original schematic, I don't know, many months ago, and this feels really good compared to what I experienced initially. This one seems like a great alternative, and it seems like it will obviously work there. So thank you for all that work. I have a couple just, I guess, important academic questions, and then I just have a process question. Can you just help me identify, you said that those pink spaces are for, I guess, special ed. Can you kind of explain a little bit how that looks? Because I can't quite figure it out. On the first floor and that to the left, I see a big rectangle and a small rectangle. What is that?
So the smaller spaces are small group learning spaces. Could be one-on-one, could be one-on-two classroom spaces, and they're organized so they can be utilized directly off the classrooms. If you see the way they're straddling between 2 classrooms. So you could have students could be in there by themselves working on projects, could be in there with a teacher or paraprofessional without being outside the classroom. So and they're identified as pink, but they really are for all students in there. And then some of the larger spaces, and we don't have it identified here, so I couldn't tell you who's in which space, but they're more of a classroom setting in that case.
Great, thank you. And I know you said this before your last presentation, just to confirm, the courtyards are abutted by non-ed academic classrooms,
That's
correct?
correct. So we were very cognizant of making sure we don't have disruption in the classrooms from a group of students being out in the courtyards.
And a couple just things about the actual site. So not that I want to see it, but that elevation change on that current field is pretty significant. So are we going to fill that in, or are we going to build on that?
So what's happening is we're mitigating that grade change. So we do what we call cut and fill analysis. So there will be a little bit of cut on the upper half of the site where the grade is higher, and a little bit of fill down below. But the building itself will all be one level.
Great. Then the question on the I kind of like this on the process is, so MSBA approves it, accepts it, hopefully, and then we get the potential cost of what they will fund the project for. And this isn't specific to us, but doesn't that make it difficult for the bidding process to work? Don't the people who are bidding know how much MSBA has approved and then they bid as close to that number as possible? Or kind of how does that process work?
Not if they want to win the job. So the committee made the decision just last week to go the design bid build method instead of construction manager at risk. All of Scituate's recent capital projects have been the design bid build method, which means low bid, open the envelopes when the design is 100% complete. So basically, and all MSBA projects follow this process of approving a project budget and then going and designing for another year and then going out to bid. So, what happens in this schematic design submission is there's a cost estimate done by Doran Whittier's team, and there's a cost estimator done by our team. And we reconcile them to make sure that two independent sets of eyes are seeing the project the same way. So, if his consultant shows the electrical at $1 million and ours shows it at 2, okay, somebody missed something or somebody's being too conservative, and that means the intent of the drawings isn't clear or a note isn't clear. So we try to work all that out. We come to that estimate and that becomes the basis of obviously the budget, but that's not the bid number, right? When these estimators look at it, if there are 7 bids, we're looking for the one in the middle, we're looking for number 4. Not too high, not too low, to give us that flexibility of what changes in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So they will do that at schematic design, and then they'll do it again at the end of design development, and twice in the construction document phase, so that we're always checking against the number to make sure that we are on budget. We can't go over, and if we're over for some reason, we have to look at a finish, maybe we look at a different exterior cladding method, and the material, you make decisions based on kind of where the budget is. You make decisions and maybe you put a bid alternate in that says, hey, if on bid day numbers come in really low, hey, let's add back in the different kind of flooring in the media center. So we'll have some strategies along the way of cost relief methods to kind of, if we sense that the market's starting to go up in a certain place, do that. And then lastly, everybody knows the ballpark of what it is, but in a competitive bidding market, the person that bids the estimated number rarely wins the job, right? So they will, it will be super competitive for this. Given the fact that there are less MSBA dollars, and there are less MSBA projects, it creates a bit of a supply issue for work, which is great for a town, because if there's less projects, it makes your project more interesting. And what we're hoping is that it drives that number down.
Okay, that's helpful. Just to follow up, but when we go to vote this at town meeting, it's the MSBA estimate, which is what we have to ask the townspeople to approve.
Correct.
But that's not the final cost, obviously.
Correct.
The final cost until this whole process
That-
is completed.
Absolutely right. So you will be asked to vote the whole value of the project.
Based on MSBA's.
So you're asking, what?
What you're saying?
Sorry.
I don't know if, maybe I heard you wrong, but MSBA does not do the estimates. We're still doing those cost estimates now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And MSBA is just approving that estimate. And then that's what the taxpayers are asking to approve, even though that's not truly the final number. We'll know until all this process has completed.
Correct. They're basically setting what they call the maximum facilities grant and saying, if your project is here, we'll give you this. And if on bid day, your project comes in $1 million less, well, guess what? Their grant drops proportionately as well.
Really?
Because they deal with your reimbursement rate is a percentage of eligible costs. Remember, the best dollar is a dollar not spent, not the dollar that you're gonna get, 30-something cents back for. It's the one that does, the taxpayer doesn't pay. So ultimately, that's the process, and we're always trying to measure against that number, make sure we're on budget. And on bid day, we see that savings to the town. And then once the MSBA sees that savings, they will adjust their bid accordingly. That number you get when we submit, their grant never goes higher. It only drops. And that's just the way it's always operated.
Thank you. And one last question. When do you anticipate bid day is based upon this schedule?
We are looking at summer of 25.
Great, thank you.
I had a couple of questions related to the timeline too. So I think this is right, but I just want to check. It seems like we won't know the exact percentage that the MSBA is going to give until April 25th or 24th, something like that. And then we vote at special town meeting the 29th. So there's just like 5 days in there.
So you'll be officially approved by the MSBA on April 24th.
Okay.
We will have had conversations with the MSBA roughly about 3 weeks after submission, so sometime in March. You
Okay.
will know before. As soon as we have that first discussion with them, that number does get locked in with them prior to April 24th. So
Okay.
there's probably, if you figure it's 2 months, you submit, and then it takes 2 months for them to say the official yes.
Okay.
About halfway through that process, we'll know what their number is. We will have had an official phone call with them.
Okay.
Superintendent will be on, and they'll say, here's what our number is. And at that point, we will sign what's called a scope and budget agreement with the MSBA, which basically says, here's the project, here's the scope, here's the budget, and we're all locked in. After you vote and the citizens say yes, then you sign the project funding agreement, which is the acknowledgement that the town has said yes to the full project budget and the acknowledgement that there is a grant up to a certain amount. And those are the 2 big agreements that you sign with the MSBA.
Okay. And then we have to vote on this twice, right? So we vote at the special town meeting and then again on the ballot. What's the difference between those 2 votes?
So I will, if I misspeak, somebody else you're a resident, why don't you answer?
So town meeting is basically to approve the project, approve the amount. Debt exclusion is to approve how you're gonna pay for it. The borrowing.
And you need both votes.
Okay.
Because what the MSBA requires is certified results and proof that it took place within a certain amount of time after they say yes at that meeting at the end of April.
Okay.
And town meeting is a 2/3 majority.
Yeah.
The ballot vote is simple.
Simple majority.
Okay. And then my other last question was just, I was curious when, I know the next public meeting, I think, is the beginning of December. At that point, will there be more like visuals to share? Okay, because I do think that's important for people to kind of get a feel of what this is gonna look like.
So we've started with the visuals over the last couple of weeks. We've been working hard within our office. We gave kind of a sneak peek last week to the working group in the SPC.
Okay.
And they've given us some great feedback, as they have all along. So our next SPC meeting is about a month from now. So we'll have some more to share at that time.
Hi, I think what some people might be hearing at home is that the vote is for an amount, but then you spend all this time figuring out the cost. So did I hear that? The design, development, construction documents?
So let me back up for a second. So the budget is comprised, and Don alluded to it a little bit earlier. So what we have been dealing with up until now, through with the various submissions to the MSBA, has been an estimate of a construction number, and then we've added 30 or 35% for soft costs for everything else. Contingencies, architect's fees, OPM's fees, furniture, fixture and equipment, basically everything that if you shook the building upside down would fall out of it that you have to buy, as well as technology. As we moved through this schematic design phase, we are still estimating construction, but we are now going to be providing you with a 50 or 60 line budget breakdown of what all of those various things are. You will have purchased already in that budget some of your architect, some of your OPM. Really, that's it. Everything else is a budget line item, because until the citizens of the town say yes, you don't have the authority to go and buy the rest of it, right? That construction budget will be very detailed by trade, but it will add up to a number, right? And it's that number that when we talk about bidding the project, we won't do for 13 months after the citizens say yes. But we know as your project team that it has to be less than that. So as the design develops through its 13-month process till we get to bid day, we will be making sure that that construction number holds. And we'll be, whether we have to do some alternates or make some changes value-wise to, a different kind of flooring or, a different kind of decision on technology, whatever it is, that will be done in concert with the building committee, so that we make sure that we are still delivering the program, because that's, this whole thing starts with a program that turns into square footage, that turns into a beautiful building that you see developing on the screen. So yeah, we will have numbers, but we won't have the actual number, like the final number that we sign a contract for with the contractor until it bids a year after you've said yes. And that's the same kind of process it's the same process you did with the Gates School. It's the same process, I think, with the senior center and the library. I know there was some supplemental funding that was required for the public safety building, but that's the exception. There were some different circumstances there. The goal with these MSBA projects is we are not coming back for more funding. Like you can't these days. So we want to make sure that the number's conservative a little bit, and it's got some wiggle room, but not so much wiggle room that people look at it and go, this is crazy, why is this so much? So that's why, we use the cost estimators that we do. It's how these projects have been done. Yes, there's been some craziness with the marketplace and some inflation and escalation of costs, of course, and you look at what this costs compared to what Gates cost. We can tell you that we don't like the cost either, but the cost of this building is in line with one that we're doing in Dedham and one that, another team of ours is doing in Hopkinton. So again, it's that number in the middle of the pack. So our goal is to always be shooting a little bit higher so that everybody's happy on bid day. That's where we're trying to end up.
And for the construction, the actual construction, you're estimating 18 months, is that correct? From the construction administration?
Yeah, there's two phases. There's the actual construction of the building, and then there's the demolition of the existing building, and that's kind of a phase two. The construction phase is, the new building itself is pretty close to the 18, as you can see on there. And then about 6 months of, demoing the old building, and the way it's laying out here is that the new building is ready kind of in the spring of 27, and that gives the summer to move everything in, get the systems up and running, get rid of the old building, make sure the site is completed, so that come September, you don't want to move out of the old one until the new one's ready. So the way this schedule lays out, it ensures that the new one is ready before you go offline. Even though it's ready in March, you would never tell everybody to move. We would never want to do that to the school community, because moving is disruptive, and there's things we have to do for LEED certification and all those pieces and parts. And you get to shake the building out and give it a good, a good period of time. So it sets you up for a really good landing in the fall of 27 with the whole project done, as opposed to just the new building. Okay, how are we going to worry about, getting the kids in there on an interim basis? You really need the old building to come down before you can use the new one, just because of the parking and everything else.
Right, and now, because it says that the 6 months for the site. So it's not gonna take 6 months to demo the whole thing?
No, but the other piece is in there, it's FF&E, so it's getting all the furniture in. It's
Okay.
demo, But the big one in there is the site construction. As Don showed you in that first graphic with the dotted line, the existing school is on top of the parking lot we need for the new, so we gotta get, demo is fast. Demo,
Yeah,
that
that's
building
what
will
it
be
is.
down and off site after it's abated in probably 2 weeks, right? But then comes a long period of building all the stormwater, building all of the other site amenities to make sure that we have a functioning, safe site, circulation and all of that. So it's only 6 months, but it's got a pretty hard start deadline of August when the faculty comes back. So it's a long time, but it's not.
I feel like we've done so much that to see it 2027 seems so far away.
I know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
No,
I-
No, just to clarify that, obviously the whole school can't come down until June, so you really have end of June and July and most of August for that period. And I know I mentioned this before, I haven't come to a recent school building committee meeting, but I'm requesting that the estimate include demolition of the old Cushing school as well as a line item. Just wanted to reiterate that. That's my request. I don't know if we have a jurisdiction, but I still feel like we need a plan.
No, I think we turn that over to the town. No?
I just want to include as a line item, and if it comes in over budget, that will be something that we can.
So to Don's point, we are tracking that kind of below the line. So the numbers, we know what it would cost, but it's not a number that we would include in the budget to the MSBA.
It's not
because
reimbursable.
They give us dollars for one demo, and that's, and the second, that's an item that I don't know if we really talked about
The next step.
right, the next
Yeah, we
steps
don't-
for pushing yet.
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
You don't know yet.
We don't know yet,
We don't know, I think. Yeah, no,
but we will certainly get to it.
yes, I think that as a town, because we don't have any jurisdiction, we would turn the school over to the town. The town needs to decide, or the citizens need to decide what they'd like to happen.
The whole, it's not just that, once you demolish Cushing, what are you gonna do with it?
Definitely.
Are you gonna put a field in, you're gonna leave it grass, there's layers to that. So we draw the line kind of at the MSBA piece of the equation, and keep going with that, but it's a very good question about, what happens outside of the project for the other pieces.
And last thing is the field at, the new Flannery Field, is that gonna be grass or turf?
I mean, right now it's being priced as grass, but it's something we can discuss in detail to see if you want to do that as the synthetic turf.
No, it's just only because it happened at Cushing, we can't put irrigation in there, so
Yeah.
that's the concern.
And it'll be a discussion point, because John mentioned potential bid alternates. That's a good bid alternate if you want to see what that would cost, because it's very expensive, as you know, fields we've done out here, right? So it is potential down the road as part of the bid alternate.
Thank you.
Can you just chime in on that as well, just be a former athletic director? I think that's something we should look closely at, but it's more of the upfront cost.
Right.
We have to look at the 10-year model, if the school's gonna be 50 years old. Grass with no water equal dirt and mud.
Yeah.
And so I think that needs to be a consideration, strong consideration, so, thanks.
Right, just a quick timeline question, I don't know if you know this, but traditionally in projects that you've worked with, have you had renamings, and typically when do districts do that in the timeline? That question comes up a lot, what will the new building be called, the consolidation? Just timeline wise, curious.
We've seen it kind of all over the place,
Okay.
but generally it happens once we get into construction.
Okay.
Yeah, and it becomes part of the ribbon cutting at the end.
So you can order the sign, like,
Yeah.
seriously, you're
Yeah.
spending all this money, and at the end, it's great if you knew, so you can put the sign up, but you don't have to.
We would not want to miss that.
I'd rather the builder who put the building up puts the sign up, than you have to
Agreed.
deal with it after the fact, so
All right.
just tell us what to put on it.
I also think it should be after the vote as well, because there's so much to do and so
Yeah.
much work. that's a whole separate animal.
Right.
And once it's approved, then we know we're getting it, then I think we have plenty of time to.
Yeah.
Don, just look at Don's schedule, if it's 18 months to build and 13 months to design, you've got 2.5 years from when you say yes to when we're opening the door to say, oh, and we still have 4 more months until you move in. So you've got a good 1.5 years at least before you even have to start to worry about it. You know, we will, you know, the estimate will include signage, what it says, that can change.
Great.
That can change.
Put that in the FAQ. Thank you very, very much for joining us tonight.
Very much.
Appreciate
See
it.
you guys,
Thank you.
take care.
Thanks. Feedback is back.
No, that's
Right.
the
First
either.
feedback. Oh, the other feedback. All right, celebrate student learning with Megan Gregory and Laura Messner.
Good evening, I'm Megan Gregory, I'm the Elementary Humanities Curriculum Coordinator. I'm Laura Messner, I'm the English Department Chair for grades 6 to 12. And when we started talking about this presentation today, we are obviously both very passionate about literacy, and we wanted to share with you the amazing passion from our teachers at all schools and grade levels about fostering the love of reading in our students, from our very youngest readers all the way through to high school. So go to the next slide. We have some examples of just thinking about our teachers do such an amazing job with making sure that reading becomes a lifelong passion for our children. We make sure we give kids cozy spots to read, lots of self-selected reading. Our principals are reading to our kindergarten classrooms. It was great to talk about some of the commonalities across elementary, middle school, and high school. Starting in elementary, some of our teachers do first chapter Fridays, where they read the first chapter of a book and then just happen to plop it down, and it generates excitement for the kids, and they can't wait to take it and read some more. In the elementary schools, we have kids dressing up like their favorite book characters. So we just really want to instill that love of reading from a young age, and it goes all the way up through the middle school and high school.
We also wanted to say that in addition to fostering a love of books and genres, that we also create skilled readers. So you can see on this slide a variety of ways in which students engage meaningfully with the content of books, with the skill of reading. At the middle school level, teachers focus on moving from a sort of learning to read to a reading to learn, where they build students' active reading skill, which is sort of a combination of helping students self-monitor their engagement and their thinking, as well as deepening their understanding of the text. By the time students reach SHS, they begin to utilize a wide variety of practices and strategies that help them to efficiently digest a text. They practice, as the student featured here is, they practice things like annotating to engage and make meaning from the text they read. In AP Lang, which is SHS's most popular AP offering, students consider, for example, how an author's message, exigence, tone, persona, and purpose are conveyed through language. Later in the same course, students develop sophisticated rhetorical analysis skills that they build through informational texts.
If you want to go to the next slide, we know that nothing creates a child who loves to read more than a child who is proficient at reading. And so we know that to be able to create that love of reading, we have to have kids who are good at it. So this is a profile of our readers in Scituate. The lighter bars are last year, the beginning of the year last year, using our benchmark data. The darker bars are this year. You'll notice we don't have data for our kindergartners yet. Knowing our kindergartners at the beginning of the year, we do not benchmark them until right now. We're doing that now, because if we polled kindergartners the first couple weeks of school and gave them a benchmark assessment to see how they were doing at reading, it would look like all of our children needed support with reading. Whereas after a month
of getting routines and understanding expectations, we really get to have a better feeling for what kids need support. If you take a look at the data, if you look at the red is showing our students who are categorized at risk for reading difficulties. Yellow is needs improvement, green is our children who are meeting expectations, and blue is our children who are exceeding expectations. One of the things that's pretty exciting about looking from last year to this year is we have decreased the percentage of our students at risk across all of the grade levels from last year to this year, and we've also increased our students who are exceeding expectations. So we're doing a really good job at those two ends of making sure that those kids who are struggling, we catch them early, we give them support, and we're pushing our kids who are exceeding expectations. As you can see, it looks a little bit similar depending on which grade level you're at, thinking about our kids in the middle, and we'll talk a little bit more on one of the next slides about how we're making sure we're supporting all of our students across elementary. On the last part is grades 6 through 12, and I know that Laura's going to talk about that a little bit. We are piloting benchmarking for the middle school and high school this year, so we'll have data going all the way through, moving forward.
And if we could just put a plug in that for 1 second and scroll to the next slide. We wanted to call out the wonderful work that our district's librarians do in building the culture of readers that we have. At Gates, an emphasis on students' voice and choice in their reading selection, as well as concerted efforts to help students explore what is out there, has translated to, you can see on the left, higher engagement with the collection of the Gates Library. Gates librarian Colleen Simpson embraces the fact that the library is everywhere, and you have been to Gates, you know that to be literally true, and has developed a system where students can access the Gates library catalog from Aspen to browse titles and place books on hold, and can check out books themselves, which is a really unique feature, and has sort of democratized the library for everybody. Students are trained how to do this. She has also enabled access to Sora, which is a platform which provides students access to thousands of titles of books in electronic and audio format. They're intended to help support struggling and reluctant readers, but they're open to all students to engage with and enjoy. And we in ELA really view the library as an extension of our ELA curriculum. And the same is largely true for our high school librarian, Tracy Newman, who's with a book display highlighting Hispanic Heritage Month.
And then so kind of looking forward to what's next. This year in the elementary, we're really focusing on when during the ELA time, what I need now, that's that dedicated time that we have in the schedule for students to get targeted instruction. So one of the things that we've been focusing on in our data meetings this fall, as we are looking at that benchmark data, we're really drilling down, not just to say, oh, these are the kids who are needy, these are the kids who are exceeding. We're looking at those subtests of the data to find out exactly what a student needs next. Here's what they're good at, here's the skill they need to work on next. So we're identifying those instructional focus areas for all of our students. And our literacy specialists who've been working on curating a collection of peer embedded resources that we know are research proven to help kids who need to work on fluency, for kids who need to work on blending CBC words, for kids who are ready to be working on comprehension. So we're really thinking about what is the instruction right now.
And as mentioned in the previous slide, we at the secondary level, we are set to start the use of a new benchmarking tool that will, for the first time, give teachers access to individual student lexile levels. Our hope is that this will open pathways for students across the curriculum to access the most rigorous and meaningfully challenging coursework available to them, and further support teachers' efforts to personalize learning for their students. The bottom bullet on increasing access to advanced English coursework, part of that, we have evidence of our efforts there, as David had mentioned in his remarks that the high school has achieved an AP honor roll designation, which recognizes schools whose AP programs are delivering results for students while broadening access. Those two things are often mutually exclusive. Schools earn this recognition based on criteria that reflect their commitment to increasing college-going culture, providing opportunities for students to earn college credit and maximizing college readiness. So that's wonderful.
That's all we have for you tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much. Questions? Maria? Ms. Beckman?
Thank you so much for your presentation. I've got a couple questions. I'll ask a couple and then see if anyone wants to chime in before I go through my whole list. But I was just curious, I know, I think it was in 2020, Massachusetts made early screening for dyslexia mandatory. And I was curious kind of what you have seen in our district, in our data, like are kids needing, do we see a big jump in kids needing services? Like how is that going? And what kind of supports, I guess, are you feeling like are really successful for those kids?
Yeah, and I know that Scituate has been, so this year, Scituate has the state has mandated the early screening across the state. We adopted it years ago. We've done a ton of work with our literacy specialists on dyslexia and looking at the dyslexia bill when it came out in 2018. So we got ahead of it of really thinking about the science of reading and taking a look at making sure we're screening all students and early intervention for those students. So we did see during the pandemic a dip in those early literacy skills according to our benchmarks. Last year, after we had adopted a phonics program for all of our K-2 students, we ended up closing that gap. So we've been doing amazing things in our early elementary classrooms and really focusing on those early skills.
I guess as a follow-up to that, are the gen ed classroom teachers like skilled at some of the phonics interventions for kids who are, getting those screeners, or is it like pull out, push in, or during the blocks or things like that?
So all kids are getting a tier 1 phonics instruction, and it's a pretty explicit tier 1 phonics instruction. So our general education teachers are very skilled at that, and they are using the same tier 1 program to give students supports in the classroom, and then kids who are getting extra support from literacy specialists or special educators are getting a second dose using the same language. That's been really important that we're staying consistent for those neediest kids, that they're not having to learn 3 different codes of how we're learning to decode words, that we're being consistent with
One more question about library in elementary school. So I saw some of the data from the middle school and the circulation and things like that, and I know we have dedicated librarians in middle and high school, but I believe in all of our elementary schools we have elementary library paras. And so I was wondering if those library paras have a consistent curriculum that supports literacy that they're following across the schools, or how is that, or is the time credit more up to the individual library each school? Or I'm just kind of curious. I really wish that we had fully trained librarians, especially just with the needs that kids have about, finding information, even like AI. I feel like there's just so much about information right now, that even elementary school kids could really benefit. So I was just curious.
So we have a new tech teacher for the elementary school, and she's working with all 4 of the library paras to help them implement digital literacy during that library time. So she's providing them with the resources and the lessons, and she's meeting with them one-on-one every other week to make sure that gets rolled out consistently across the 4 elementary schools.
Thank you. A couple questions. First of all, what type of assessments were used to create this data? And does it correlate with MCAS relative to, grade 3, 4, and 5? Was that simply MCAS scores, or is there a different assessment that we're using?
No, we benchmark all of our students during a 2-week window in September. For we use DIBELS, which is the Dynamic Indicator of Basic Early Literacy Skills, which has subtests of all of those early literacy indicators. We use that from K to 4. And then starting in 2nd grade, going to 5th grade, we use STAR, which is an online computer adaptive program, which measures the end result, our children comprehending what they read. So when you're looking at here, K to 2 is DIBELS, because that's where we're really focusing is those early literacy skills, and 3 to 5 is from the STAR benchmark. Is it working? Are they comprehending?
And is there a correlation between these scores and our MCAS scores in grade 3 through 5?
There is, I don't have that data handy. When we use the platform that we use, STAR, it does give us a prediction for end of year MCAS scores based on just those.
And then, Laura, you, it's a little bit concerning to me that we're piloting our profile of middle and high school students. So we were not doing any sort of assessments or benchmarking of our secondary kids?
No, historically, reading instruction really pivots in 6th grade. Most secondary teachers are content experts and are not reading instructors. So it becomes more about strategic reading. Right now, we have been using IXL in grade 6 to 8 for the last couple of years. We decided that there's a better, more effective tool for us to be moving to, and that's the direction in which we're moving.
We're using IXL and ELA?
Yeah.
We were? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Oh, he asked your question. I was like, wait, he has a question for you. Yeah, sure. I just have one question. So what do students who are not receiving interventions during the WIN block, how are they spending that time block?
So because every student is being assigned an instructional focus, so even those kids who are in the green or blue, if you're picturing that, we're able to look at those subtests and say, all right, what these kids need next is fluency, what these kids need next is comprehension. All of those kids are assigned an instructional focus area, and that's the instruction that they're getting during that time.
And that's the class, within the classroom by the classroom teacher.
It depends on the makeup of the class, if who's being pulled out. Sometimes it's the teacher's taking a small group, and one group is working independently, and they'll switch. So it depends on what that looks like in the classroom.
All right. Maria.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing. A couple years ago, the SPED PAC had a woman come and do a presentation for parents about dyslexia and learning disabilities that show up in reading and writing. And I thought it was so valuable. It was really well done. And I feel like it just really gave parents a good understanding of what to look at. Because I feel like reading and writing are two things you can kind of see more of at home than some of the other subjects. So it's a little bit easier as a parent to kind of know what's going on. But I felt like the information she shared was just so valuable. And I felt like that could be something that might be really helpful to help parents be, better partners in this. And similarly, I know we are now getting beginning, middle, and end of year letters home if your kid is at or above benchmark or below benchmark. And I would also love to see parents getting some more detailed information. I know sometimes these benchmark assessments come with parent reports. I know it's probably a lot of work, and so I kind of cringe saying this, but I do feel like sending those types of detailed reports home for parents could be a way to, again, help parents know better how to help their own kids. So that was just one quick idea / question.
I was just gonna say, to piggyback off Maria and maybe back to Peter's question, as a parent, I would just say for parents who are getting those notices and wondering, reach out to your teacher, because my wife and I just went in and had a great discussion with a teacher, and those assessments, Peter, really do help. They just for me, they just clarify what's going on with MCAS, and they actually do sort of seem to be really very related. So it's almost like you have this MCAS score and then you dive deeply using the teacher as a resource in the assessment. So any parent that has a question about that MCAS, you should be in there talking to the teacher because it's pretty remarkable what you can learn.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie, and that's what I was gonna say as well, is that please reach out to the classroom teacher. They are all very versed in what this looks like. Those parent reports from the benchmark assessments can be a little bit overwhelming when you're just looking at them without any context, and the teachers are really able to kind of talk you through what it means and what it means for your child and what those next steps would be.
One more question, more middle school based. Obviously their schedules are different and still have this problem with the friction between the student who is into chorus and band and they're just not able to access in the same way those supports that students who are not involved in it, and it really feels like a punishment and it's such a hard age group to get that. To explain the value of both when you're looking at a math benchmark and an MCAS score, that it's really tough as a parent. And I know that it's also been tough with the scheduling and figuring this out. And I know time's been spent, but I know it's still definitely something that I think we should be working towards.
So it actually is. The Gates faculty did a schedule sort of study last year and made a more of a tweak than a fundamental change, which is why you might not even be aware of it, to the enrichment block, which is the block where band and chorus occur. So there is now a built-in time designated specifically for those students who we had historically either forced them to make a hard choice, which is not fair, or had them not get a service that they could have otherwise gotten, or even just time to meet a teacher, let alone a specific service. And so now, built into the schedule, it's not frequent, but it's there, is a time where students who are involved in the spectacular band and chorus programs that the school offers, to be able to access teachers and support.
Okay, so it's like a step in the right direction.
It is a step in the right direction.
I know it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, so how frequent does that occur?
It's either every other week or once a month.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you both. Is everyone? Okay. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. Yes. Okay, up next, Superintendent Burkhead, Superintendent goals.
Thank you. He's going to help me share this on the screen. I will start with the context that I'm very excited tonight to share these goals. I don't know if I've said that every year, but it was. So I do want to say it. I've just in year 4. I think it takes 3 to 5 years of of work to see some change, and no excuses with COVID. I think we really a strong foundation. But in my 4th year here, what I've realized is that we've got, this is, we're attracting the best teachers, the best paraprofessionals, support staff, and administrative team now that's been together for a couple of years and growing. So I think we're well positioned. And then the strategic plan development with community voice and having a guiding document made this process a lot easier. And when we're meeting with our leadership teams and they're meeting with the teachers, so how this process goes, but it all connects nicely and you can kind of keep track of things versus just reacting. That's some of the excitement I shared tonight. And I also will share that all these are the goals and the strategic plan is a 5-year document. We'll be doing other things above and beyond what we share here tonight as well. So next slide, please. So just for folks new to the process, ultimately, we're here for student achievement. Biggest priority is that students achieve at high levels, meet their potential, and are successful. Every student's different. So to have coordination and organization in that, superintendent's goals feed into what the administrator's goals are, into the teacher's goals, and all that should result in student achievement. I will add to this document as well, that's not up there, the template is the school committee goals also feed into that. We follow those closely and watch those when they're ready. And strategic plan. Something we haven't had, on next year's slide, I'll probably add that for our student goals, superintendent goals. So the process of goal setting for the superintendent, again for some context, is a self-assessment that I do, which is pretty much year round, but really intensifies in the spring. We've got a lot of things, in place. I use the performance rubric that you'll see on the far right. Those are the bullets that I'm evaluated on by the school committee. Certainly a lot of data that Laura and Megan shared an initial view of that. So the good news is we've got plenty of it to use it in a smart way and coordinate that and get everyone using it correctly. I think, again, my excitement moving forward, and I'll share some examples of that later on in my presentation. The data, all kinds of it that we have. The feedback from the school committee obviously is huge and important to me and very helpful. What's going well, what we can improve on. So that's a big part of it. Staff feedback, obviously, and other relevant evidence. In this case, could be the strategic plan, which I think covers all of these things. When we get to the goal setting, there'll be 3 types of goals I'm responsible for: student learning goals, and this year we'll have 2, professional practice goals and district improvement goals. And the evaluation on those goals is done by the committee of the superintendent, typically in May before the spring election. And I'm measured on the core standards of instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture, and my goals. So I guess I'll pause after each one just so I don't go fast. If you have any questions, just shout out. So I thought it would be important to show the strategic plan. I really like this document. Obviously, the whole entire strategic plan is in detail, is available on our website and pretty easy to find, but I just did want to give a snapshot of it. I think it's important and, what we want to accomplish. So our vision, the big picture, set sail, dream, explore, and discover. It's just kind of, the sky's the limit. Be everything you can be and be unique, be you. Really cool vision. And I really like this mission, and anybody that was on the collaborative team that put that together based on feedback and not, it took a lot of time and thought, and it's very unique to Scituate. You'll see there together, we, capitalize we, and I'm starting to use that in my correspondence because again, that's purposefully done, that this is a team effort, that it takes everybody. The old saying, it takes a village, it really does. And I think we all know that. And the more we're on the same page, the better communication we have, the more systems and processes we have that align to this plan, the more successful we'll be. And so it talks about supporting kids, challenging all learners. That includes obviously our students, but also our adults, and it includes me tonight. This is my goal is to see with professional practice goal, my goal to improve myself, my learning as a model. To reach their unique potential. Again, those words chosen carefully. Unique, every child's different and unique. They all have individual potentials, and we want that to be met. And then on the core values, you can see that those are intertwined through all of this. Down the bottom, we reach every student by ensuring equity, nurturing perseverance, growth, and achievement, valuing love, inclusion, and trust, investing in safety, and engaging with the community. I think that's a pretty nice broad swath of goals to have under your core values and belief. And then those turn into strategic objectives. And we have 3 major ones: teaching and learning and leading, communications and community partnerships, and then the finance, facilities, personnel, and technologies. And when I talk about my goals tonight, I'll have each number up there for which goal I believe targets each of those objectives. Next slide, please. So the first goal, is my first use of the word, we will collect, assess, monitor, and show improvement and accountability ratings at Scituate High School. So this is the first time, and why I'm excited that we specifically I specifically targeted the school. Now, that doesn't mean we won't be looking at all the other schools. The high school, as you know, is the flagship of every district. It's the high stakes building, and it's the culmination of your education here in Scituate. So with new leadership and I think the kids talked about it, a new energy in the building and great teachers and support staff, we're primed for this. It was a great place to target. And the accountability data that started kicking in back last year are the examples I'm going to go through. There are multiple measures that feed into your percentile ranking. You recall one of my goals last year was the percentile ranking, which is just the bottom number where you're compared to all the other schools. Now we're going to get into the weeds a little bit into more detail and depth with meeting these other targets. And this is, I think, traditional with us to have, and this is what we talk to our principals about and to our teachers, to have really aggressive goals, meaning, well, 50% of the students will meet target. And then the question would always be, well, what about the other 50%? What's from a parent of the other 50%? And 100%, goals, SMART goals are supposed to be realistic. So we're trying to find our niche, and you'd rather go on the higher end and fall a little short than go low just to achieve a goal. So what you'll see here is we want all of our students to meet or exceed their targets for all students and in all student groups. And the timing of this presentation, I think, is good because Heidi, Ms. Driscoll, last school committee meeting, gave a sky view of all of our schools and kind of where we stand there and what we're looking at. Here, we're really focusing on the high school because they have more accountability data points than the elementaries and middle school. And the first one, an obvious one, is achievement. The next one is growth, which feeds into achievement. The more I grow, the higher my achievement. High school completion, something we're pretty strong at, but also important, graduating. And then there's additional indicators. One that we brought up tonight, that chronic absenteeism and advanced coursework, which could be additional AP courses or other rigorous courses that the DESE approves, that we were lacking in access to those courses. So it's one thing to have those courses, but it's another that those kids are taking them and succeeding them. And finally, just a real number there, our percentile ranking after collecting all this accountability data and putting it into the DESE machine. And we don't know the formula they use, but this number is compared to all the other schools. 78 is where we stood this year. And the goal is to do better than that compared to 100. So 78, we're doing 78% C compared to our high schools. So if we do all these other things, and I think Ms. Driscoll brought it up last meeting, we don't get our targets till we still haven't gotten them. So the goal is that we look into all of these accountability ratings and just improve, just work on ourselves. And it's us versus ourselves there. Improve all those, and then our percentile ranking will go up. I'm going to give you some examples of some of things we're kind of looking at and steps we're taking to do this on the next couple of slides. Of course.
Just a quick question. This is, just to clarify, a singular school year goal, not a multi-year. Okay.
1 year, yes.
1 year.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Heidi, can you go back to the previous slide? So the goal is really around improvement, right? Or is it also that you're now doing some new assessment monitoring as well as improvement?
I think the new assessment monitoring will feed into improvement, so the goal is improvement.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. And this is just a little thing, I should have caught it when we were looking, we will collect, probably should be we will collect data versus we collect, right? If it's, we assess improvement, we monitor improvement, we show improvement, we collect data to do those
Yeah, we're
things.
missing that. Thank you for catching.
Yeah.
So what are we collecting there? It's kind of
Grammar.
We will collect improvement.
cut that out.
Well, I just wanted to read it to make sure I understood it.
You're absolutely right. We're missing the data point there. And the funny thing is, I was spending so much time looking at that 78 circled in the red. There were 3 different iterations of this, just so you want to know how sausage is made, and that you couldn't get the circle around the 78. So maybe I missed the collect data because I was so focused.
Well, I'm also looking carefully because I'm in charge of drafting the school committee goals, so I'm paying particular attention here.
So my advice would be don't worry about the circle so much, worry about the actual content.
I noticed the circle
Thank you.
immediately, so through my eyes.
That should be collect data. So here's where we are now. Obviously we're glad not to be in the left where you're in need of support. support. This is the overall rating. Right now, we're in moderate progress towards goals, which is fine. It's good. It's not great. You can see we still have 3 categories to the right where we can move the needle, where we should be and want to be, and goal is to move. So part of this accountability is to move that from moderate progress to at least substantial progress toward goals. As you saw, the goal was the blue, meeting or exceeding all the targets. So we want to jump over 2. And if we can get over 2 spots and we're meeting and exceeding each year and get things rolling and systems in place that I'll talk about, then there's no reason why we can't do a school of recognition. So that's kind of another, when you look at these documents, you'll see our rating here has been moderate. And we want that to go up to at least substantial progress or meeting or exceeding in all our targets. So here's a granular document of the high school, a little bit more detailed than Ms. Driscoll showed last time. So this document we've been trained on, the principals have, the teachers will be looking at it, and this will start at this level, and with like any other data, it's going to create more questions. And then we're going to really get into classes, teachers will be looking at, and then specific students. Like, for example, if you look at and by the way, this was, Ms. Driscoll created this, it's a color-coded document that the state doesn't give us, that she created to make it easier to understand and to use. So what this year has also brought is removed a lot of barriers from teachers having to look up their own data and navigate DESI and all that, having it in their hand, principals having it in their hand, central office having it in their hand. We all have the same stuff. We all are trained on the same vernacular and what we're looking for from central office all the way down to teachers and to offer our support. And, so if you look at, and I found an interesting one, the math, for example, the math is a red 0, all students, and then they break it out to high needs, low income, students with disabilities. Well, you could say, well, we got a 4, it's all out of 4, by the way. So math, we did pretty good achievement with students with disabilities, but overall, we didn't meet our target. If you go down to the growth in the next category in the green there, you'll see in math that we got straight 3s and that we met our targets. So we met the targets of growth, our achievement's still low. So that just shows you we've got to almost kind of double our growth. So we're starting at a lower place. So that's kind of how you read that. If you look at the weighted column, this is how DESI does do that. So you see the 45.5% is on achievement, which it should be. So it's almost half is on your achievement. And then another 22.5%. So, about 3/4 of it's going to be on growth and achievement. And then if you go down, you see high school completion. We do a nice job. There's a lot of 4s there. A couple of 0s though, and we can look at, why are we getting all 4s, but then we've got 2 0s in the dropout rate. And that could be like there's 1 or 2 kids in that category, so 4 or 5 kids and 1 kid drops out. That could sway that. So again, this is where at the principal level and the teacher level, we start asking those questions to identify what the true issues are behind the red scores, green and blue and whatnot. And then, to point out, then you see this is an interesting one. For example, chronic absenteeism. Okay, 4, 4, 4, 4. Wow, that's great. But it was so bad, if you will, that we have met our target, but we still have a long way to go. So that's what you have to be careful for. So some of these numbers can be tricky. That's why it's just an example. It's the starting point that we start at. But even here, I've raised some questions that I have, and okay, let's dig down. And we already have dug down into a lot of these, especially the chronic absentee one, where we know we can do a lot better and get 4s again, continue to get, because if you're not in class, I was talking to an elementary principal today, and first year, and Ms. Driscoll did a nice job of training everybody. Wow, I really started looking at the absentee level, and I realized I put 2 and 2 together, the big gaps we're having, the kids that were scoring really low, a lot of them fell in that chronic absentee. If they're not here, they can't learn type of thing. So that principal actually added a new goal today. We were meeting, and on this, we're looking at this information, and that principal added that as a very smart goal. Oh, wow, I didn't catch that before. We didn't look at that correlation. So a lot to learn here. It's a first year. Now the teachers will have access to their classroom data and look at how they compare versus colleagues and things like that. And, you know, we want to create a safe space to do that because it's all about self-improvement. It's also about sharing great ideas. And the item analysis, if you looked at a teacher that did, you know, that kid scored way above the state in his district, that you can ask that teacher, okay, how do you teach that lesson, unit? And that's where when you really get it going on, when you have that collaboration. After you get over, it's okay, it's safe to look at our data, our individual data as teachers for the first time, how we're doing and how it's trending over the years and what we can do to improve and what we can learn from each other. So that's kind of the behind the scenes work that will, you know, get us to a place of improvement, along with the other things that we're doing with curriculum, the reading programs, things like that. I know that's a lot. So, yeah.
I know you just mentioned a lot of that, but can we just look at, I'm just gonna take example, science achievement. Obviously, that's somewhere that we need to improve upon. So how does that get communicated to that particular subject? Does it go to the principal who then speaks to department chair who speaks to teachers, or does it go to, or how does that communication process work? And is everyone that needs to know about these scores, are they aware of those scores and your goal?
Thanks, great question. And for the first time this year, we're doing it, all of those things you just said. We haven't been into that granular detail with the teachers. Okay, so the answer to your question is, first level was central office, we get it, we dissect it. Okay, what are the trends, what are we looking at? Then all the principals are trained on this document, digging down into looking at your school, into looking at your individual teachers so they understand it. And then I was at the last meeting where Ms. Driscoll trained the department chairs and looking at this data from a teacher perspective. And now the department chairs are going to meet with the teachers in small departmental groups, really small, and look at their individual classroom data so that we kind of keep whittling it down from the district to a school to a teacher, to a department to a teacher. So to answer your question, yes, teachers will have this information, they'll have their classroom, and they'll have right down to the questions that were asked. That, again, we think they'll pay big dividends that we haven't been able to do.
Add something in. So this is just focusing on the MCAS, but I think what's tricky here about what you're talking about is we won't know how the kids do until this time next year. At that point, those kids will already have moved on to the next grade. So I feel like this goal, I understand that it's appropriate that it's about the MCAS, but there's a lot more assessment that has to go on in the interim so that the teachers can figure out, you know, what it is that's hampering kids. You know, what's hard about this.
Yeah.
But the tricky thing for a teacher is that those kids who took that MCAS last year are already on to the next grade.
And I think that's why we talked about having the benchmark for the first time, not having any at the high school. That's new this year too, so that's a great point because this gives you, you know, a trend over time, and it's a little late because those kids are already gone, but it does give us also individual teachers that are able to track how they're doing over the course of years and what they can improve on, so I think that eventually will help us. We're also, you know, there's also stuff besides MCAS on here too, with the, you know, graduation with rigorous coursework, and I do want to give a shout out, an example of something that we've been focusing on that's paid dividends and why I'm excited about, you know, the staff and the team we have. Is the, I think the kids brought it up today, is the AP honor roll. When a couple of years back, we had a problem, we were getting a lot of heat for our AP scores and the lack of, you know, kids taking it. We partnered up and made a commitment to partner up with Mass Insight. Our teachers really bought in, and they got, you know, they weren't, in fairness to the teachers, they weren't given training in the past. It was in the summer on their own time, so they got training. Practice tests were introduced that weren't happening before. And all these things happened, and our numbers have skyrocketed for access and opportunity, kids taking it as well as kids scoring better. So we hope to expand that example with rigorous coursework. That's one of the criteria here, with attendance and with achievement and with growth. And you're right, this is one indicator, but we thought it gets the best bang for your buck overall in judging where you stand.
I think that's fantastic, though. I love the focus on this. It sort of piggybacks off of Ms. Borkowski's comment about going in and doing these meetings with teachers. And it is all connected, you know, at some point, all the threads kind of come together for an individual student. So I think it all makes sense, and I encourage people to not be afraid of data and to really actually embrace it, and that's where you find growth and development and change. So for sure, absolutely, I think this is the right direction.
Thank you. I think that combines, Ms. Fenwick says, is culture. A culture of looking at these scores. It's two and two. Yeah, we have to look at other things real time, but we have to get used to being able to do that, reflect and look and collaborate and, face the reality where we stand with our own teaching and learning, how we support our teachers, materials they need, professional development they have. Now we can really target professional learning for our teachers, and that's something else we're excited about. That Ms. Driscoll started this year as professional development choice. Now there's many options for teachers to actually pick where they want to spend their professional development days, so that everybody has a place where they're excited to go, and it's not one size fits all, because that's really not a good thing. So that's another exciting thing and those PDs are developed by our professional development committee, which is representative of teachers, administrators, but they use the strategic plan as a guide, and some of the assessments on things that we need to support. It's all interconnected, but it's new. So the next goal is we will participate in this systemic student support, so that's 3 times fast. So I'll refer to that from now on as S3 Academy. I think we get some good partners here. I think we've been really, had a great relationship with Bridgewater State and Mass Partnership for Youth. Thank you. And now we've got a new one. Hats off to our team for applying for this through DESE. This is free because we went for it, got it. And the timing's great because it's literally written in our strategic plan. So we have partnered with the Rennie Center, Boston College, and DESE to establish a foundation for our district multi-tiered systems of support, philosophy and practices. Are we doing this? Yeah, in pockets. Not any system in place or process that, haven't checked best practices on this. We have a lot of growth in this area, and I think that's why it was targeted as a goal from the entire community in our strategic plan. And I just I can find it, I want to make sure I read that goal. So in our strategic plan, it says, the strategic plan initiative, expand knowledge and uniform practices of multi-tiered systems of support, with the outcome, all SPS students have the academic and social emotional skills to find success both in school and after graduation. MTSS, just going to this because there's many definitions out there, but one we're looking at is framework many schools use to provide targeted support to struggling learners, but to all learners. The goal of MTSS is to intervene early and address students' skill development, so they're caught up in that grade level. You close those gaps, and screening all students and measuring how they're doing. Often, in this case, we also share it with our parents, get them involved. So that's kind of the goal here, is to look on the right, is to pilot this, start small, do it really well with this group of professionals that does this well, from DESE, DC, and the Rennie Center. We chose the middle school with them, that was the decision. So we're going to, I'm just going to, so this pilot program will be at Gates. They've already started meeting with Ms. Driscoll, Ryan Beatty, a couple of educators. We'll come up with common language. That's huge in anything you do educationally. And then map out resources they'll need, and then come up with a 2-year plan based on spending time here and working together for a year and trying this out. So this is likely a goal that will take 2 or 3 years just to get going. We're starting in grade 7 this year. So the goal is to expand it after this year to the entire middle school, and then start it next year in the elementaries. Right, so this will be ongoing with the middle school one step ahead, what we learned from middle school to pass down to the elementary. And with the ultimate goal of having a pre-K through 22 MTSS support system, a tiered system of support that's consistent across schools, that the processes in place, that assessments are in place to identify students, communication are in place. That diagram up there is kind of one I just put up there. That's kind of like the the gold standard, all those things gonna be happening, and they're not right now. So we're starting basically from the ground level, and we look forward, there'll probably be updates on this throughout the year to the committee, on how we're doing and what's happening in this in more detail. But that's real new, and again, we're excited to get the ball rolling.
When you say participate in an academy, can you say more about that? Like, what does that mean? Is that meetings? Is that mentorship? Is that a designation? Can you just?
Yeah, Commissioner. I'm going to defer to Ms. Driscoll, who is the lead on this.
So we are in with a group of other schools that are doing this work. So this has been going on for a couple years. There are other schools that are ahead of us. And a couple times a year, all the schools get together to talk about best practices and share what they know. But we actually have coaches who I want to say we've already met 3 times with our coaches. We met once with the full group and then just with Scituate. So they can actually help us figure out how to bring everything together and create a solid system. And the plan and what they do with school districts is start with one class, one group, then it goes to a whole team, then a whole grade, then a whole school. We're also they're helping us with things like the district curriculum accommodation plan that needs to be into here. And I think you heard Megan refer to tier 1. We have to have a solid tier 1 before we go to tier 2. So we plan, Ryan Beatty is a huge part of this because it's at his school, of course, and he's 7th grade teacher and guidance counselor. We will absolutely come and update you on the work we're doing, but it's been great to be a part of it.
So the support, to follow up, and then I'll be quiet. So the support and the coaching within the academy is gonna contribute to the 4 goals, Bill, that you have there. The pilot program, the common language.
Those are the outcomes.
Okay. I see. Just to make sure. 'Cause I'm asking because we have to measure you against these at the end of the year, and I just wanna understand what the.
And you all taught me well that we need outcomes measurement.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Those are the bullets on the.
Clarify.
Well, I do wanna add too, this is a 3-year commitment that we have working with them, and we aren't going to say, really it's based on the work we do. So if they recommend by the end that we are, I don't know, we don't know what they're going to recommend, just that, so.
Is it a grant, Heidi? Is it a grant that we are working?
It is a grant through DESE, so DESE pays for all of this training and the coaching meetings, but the money doesn't come directly to us, but yes, it's 100% free, and I'm thankful that we don't have to pay for this, and that can be part of it.
So the academy is for the staff to learn how to support the students.
It starts with a small team, and then it expands to greater and greater amounts of staff.
Yes.
Yep.
Slow roll. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wait, I have one more question. I was just curious about the pilot program to create the best practices for teacher leaders. If you could give them more detail about that, I just feel like I'm
Sure.
excited to see it.
So we are getting trained by these experts when we go to our small meetings. An example of something that they shared with us at our last training was how most school districts have a chaos model. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So they had this slide with all these different boxes of all these awesome things and arrows going everywhere. And it's my favorite slide. And they explain how we're going to keep all of those things that we do that are great, but we have to put it into a document, a sustainable practice, so that we're not doing things in pockets and all those things come together. So that was a part of why that was my favorite slide as a part of this training to get to our pilot, is because it made us know, hey, this is what is happening everywhere. It's something that we are going to work together to build a sustainable practice, and very few places have this done already, which is why DESE has the S3 Academy.
Thank you. So the next next, moving on to the professional practice goal, and something I alluded to at the beginning. I started out with we here will participate in statewide and national professional development. And I move into that will directly impact and navigate political complexity and stay the course. I switch in on my commitment to all students. So the we part there is just because, basically this is to take a step up from the local to the state and national, to get more involved, get more training at that level, build more networking. In our fourth year, I put the we because I know many of us at central office are doing that, not just me. So I wanted to encompass that, including, I think, Sharon Brandolini is a two-time national presenter with Ms. Driscoll. So I wanted to capture that with the we. I can fix the grammar of that, but that's why, because I think I'm encouraging all of central office. I know, Jamil has presented statewide and nationally, and I know Tom will likely do that. So if you look on the right, I talk about here, content meetings, professional development. So for me, as you recall, I had the new superintendent induction program, which went 3 years. That just ended last year. So now what I'd like to do is get involved in more state and national, outside the Lighthouse network I'm in, and get involved. For example, I was just asked to be on the Medcode leadership by the REI, a set of 8 or 10 people to be on that, which is timely with committees asking me to reach out and help improve our Medcode programming. So I'm excited to be on that as a state level, and then looking at some national opportunities that have come my way, get more involved in that, to broaden my scope and to deal with the very complex and changing world of education, and just to get better at it. So that's kind of that, and the evidence of that will be my involvement in those programs and the results, how I bring it back and to apply it to our kids, our school, our staff, and our district. So that's TBD right now. And the last one is the district improvement goal, and one where I spend a lot of my time, and I know many of you have and will and do. It's wild, and I think Janice pointed this out, it's like, it feels like it consumes like 90% of my life, not just my, and then when they show that bigger thing and we're only at the beginning, I'm like, oh my God, so it just blows me away. So I like seeing the smaller.
Yeah, I don't wanna see that
I
big one.
like to see the monthly timeline versus the 2027, but
Anxiety provoking.
yeah, so basically, we will meet, I'm leading the charge here. We've got to meet all the deadlines. We will do that. We haven't missed one. We've been early on all of them. We've been successful in all of them. The Wednesday meeting that Ms. Lemieux referred to is a follow-up basically of our previous meeting, the FAS meeting where we presented our PSR for schematic design, the one building. It's more of a formality, so I will be there to answer any questions, but to also thank them. I'll let you all know that's what Wednesday is. That's a nice milestone. So we've already started this, putting the details on the building. But in a nutshell, I got to get this thing to yes. I got to get a financially, fiscally responsible building that the community can be excited about and understand that the cost is appropriate and not bloated. At the same time, create a learning environment that's second to none and unique to Scituate. And finally, one that can be the learning in the buildings, even some of the designs can be replicated in our other buildings. So that this process we're going through, it's important to note that it will benefit the students at the other elementary schools as well. With, for example, all the capital money we're able to shift over to those other buildings to improve them each year. Where if we had to put it towards these two buildings, there wouldn't be much left for anything else, quite honestly, as you know, the shape they're in. So some of the action steps, John had his timelines, the public relations and communication. Something they didn't talk about is that we're doing a mini world tour. We'll be heading to all the PTO meetings. We'll publicize those. We have small conversations open to the public. Get out there more often, just talking to people, Q&A, just having conversations and getting feedback. We really, for example, the frequently asked questions in the new website design came from feedback. So it's really important. It gets us to answer questions and gets accurate information from the horse's mouth at those meetings. Also be having a meeting at the senior center during one of their very popular breakfasts. So we're trying to hit all clientele in all different kinds of areas. So all those little meetings, even though there's only one major public meeting, just know there'll be multiple other smaller public meetings open to everybody that we will be broadcasting out to the community so that everybody can make it. So there'll be multiple of those meetings, and they're already targeted for the month of November. And then the last one, obviously, is to get 2 yes votes.
Can we ask questions? Yeah. I'll start with what I think is my easier question. So I just want to check in with you. So the National Professional Development Goal, Goal 3, it feels like it's the umbrella goal. Like you could only have 4, but you really wanted 7, and so you mushed everything under 3. So I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable with saying you want to, get better with our finances, you want to improve communication, you want to do networking, and you also want to do lots of PD. That's a lot in that goal.
On this one,
Yeah.
I think I have 1 and 3, not the communication one, is the ongoing goal.
Well, I mean, you say enhanced communication with stakeholders.
Yep.
So that's communication, developing strategies, best use of resources, good steward of our finances,
Yep.
collaboration, networking, and professional development. You feel okay about?
Yeah, because I think these overlap with the other goals.
Okay.
For example, the communication one is the PR we're doing with the new building project.
Okay.
And for example, it's a great question. Thank you for, I don't want to bury myself.
Well, again,
in things
I feel like we want to set, we
Thank
want
you.
success,
Yep.
so it's just a lot in
And
there.
again,
so.
it's an aggressive goal.
Yeah.
But for example, like last Friday, I went down to East Hampton at a story of a building, which was an MSBA sponsored event where they talk about getting to yes vote on a new building. And so that would be, that's my, okay, now I gotta go out into these PR meetings and what I learned there. So that's one example
Okay.
where I can go to another one with the MECCO types of things and collaborate nationally, hopefully through that. So, yeah, I
That
think
makes sense.
but yeah, it's all overlapped, and I thought about that. And this one seems a lot, but it is intertwined, and it'll help me push myself. If I didn't write it down, I might not do it type of thing. So if I get better at all these, the other goals should fall into place.
Yeah, it makes better sense now that you said that. The other question is, so I'm asking as both a school committee member and also as a parent of two elementary school kids and a middle school kid. So I feel like this is similar to the discussions we've had about the MSBA project, which is we're building a brand new elementary school and there's other buildings that you're caring for.
Correct.
And so if you're a parent of kids who aren't in the high school and your learning goal is focused on the performance of the high school, what do you say to parents who don't have high school kids? What's the focus, right?
Yeah, and I think I started off with that I use it kind of a slang like walk and chew gum, but I think that all of our goals are important. Like this one, I didn't want to put all 5. I think the elementary schools, their accountability is achievement and growth, it's 2. High school has many more, as you saw. I think back to kind of what Ms. Fenwick was talking about, is that we have benchmarking in place there. I think systems are in place there. There's a lot more structure there. So I think they're in a much big consistency we've worked on the last 3 years. So I think a lot of work has gone on into those places. Middle school with the MTSS. So I think this is balancing really. I think quite honestly, I could have done a better job at the high school the last couple of years where a lot more of the energy has been in the elementary and middle school. So the answer to that, it's a great question, is that the attention will continue to be at all those buildings and improved, but we simply have a lot more at stake at the high school right now to focus on those particular things, and we can still do those things at the other schools as well.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And I think what I love about this goal, I think Maria, you had mentioned it a couple of times, is this sort of thread that we should be seeing from elementary school to high school. And I feel like this goal is such a great opportunity to shine a light on that real thread that's building. Like we should be educating high school graduates in kindergarten, in pre-K, right? And I think this goal permits you and your teams to do that. So I think that's right.
I think you wrote my summary right there. I think that if we can get to high school, and because the question I knew would come up is like, well, why are you starting at the end? Why wouldn't you start at the elementary? And we have for the last 3 years. We really have. Without coming out and saying that, we've put a lot of like the new literacy program and all the work that we talked about here. I think we're in really good shape there. We're not satisfied certainly, but I think you're right. If we can kind of boost up some of the things in the high school, and we've got the right people in the right places and the right systems now, with some of the things we talked about, I think we can show that through line that we are, going like this for all our kids. That's all.
And I have a comment on that too. I think this hits on the T and the SMART goal. It's very targeted, and SMART goals are hard for some people, and I know I've personally struggled with this too, just to be specific and targeted. It increases accountability when you're more specific. So you're just sort of putting yourself at risk by, for example, the circled red number piece. It's like, that's a solid number. That's, what you're going to be measured against. So there's this, I think, sort of natural inclination to go broad, because then it isn't going to be as easy. Just you give yourself more wiggle room, but by being really, I think it's a brave move to be very targeted and specific. So
Well,
it's fantastic.
thank you, but I want to model that, but it also shows the trust I have in our high school team that we can do that. But they just needed some direction and focus guidance, and they'll do the rest.
And Maria might have been Maria's question, but the percentile ranking of 78 right now, when did that score come out?
When the MCAS, the accountability reports came out? Yeah, recently. End of September.
Okay, no, I'm just trying to figure out timing for measuring and evaluation of your goals, because that score is not going to come out until after your evaluation next year. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. That's when I did my percentile ranking. We had the same conversation. It was kind of, I'll bring you all the evidence we have.
Yeah.
Like I can do attendance, I can do growth and all that. And kind of like we do our benchmarking, that should align with the scores. And kind of like what Ms. Driscoll presented here. To be able to measure the final number, that 78 number won't be, it'll be a couple months later, won't be in May. I'll still want to be accountable for it. But I'll have other evidence to show that we're confident we'll make it there.
Right. Thank you.
Should maybe include other numbers on?
I could,
I mean, maybe
yeah,
just like
something we'll
what-
have at the end of the
like
year
what we
to
would
measure.
have, just so we have something to hang our hats on to say you've met this goal.
Sometimes thoughts just come up and I have to say them out loud. Do we have to evaluate the superintendent today, or could we move it?
We had just talked about that.
I think that, just my history of it is that you all are here from the beginning, and there's an election in May. Should somebody be replaced, and that person only gets to measure me on a month, and that person that knows me, that's up to you all.
Yeah, I think it's been, we had talked about it, I think we finally got on the calendar of through the election cycle. I think technically it's, as long as the superintendent agrees to that time frame, then you can change the schedule. But I think that my perspective is I kind of like what we're on now.
Me too.
It's a little bit cleaner.
I'd rather see different data than change the calendar.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we, again, Maria brought it up earlier. What MCAS is just it's the worst thing about it. It comes, you get the data that a year later, and to me, it doesn't make any sense, but it is what we have. So that's one of the measuring tools, right? I like this model for me. It is a little early in May, but by May, we have a good idea, with a month left in school on where we stand, and I have no problem getting evidence for that.
All right, so just going back to this, because the red is just making me a little bit wild. But our science, I'm just using science because it's here. The data of science achievement is generated from where? Is it just MCAS, or is it a variety of?
That's just MCAS in this document.
Can I add something?
Please. Because there's a caveat with science.
Yeah, just one grade, I think, or two
The end of
grades.
the
So do you remember years ago when math and English changed to MCAS 2.0? So it shifted from the old MCAS to the new, and the bar, the raw score to get to the higher numbers changed. So for example, on the old MCAS, I'm gonna use gymnastics as an example. On the old MCAS, you could do, be a 10th grader, do a gorgeous cartwheel and get advanced on the old MCAS. The new MCAS 2.0, they want you to truly exceed grade level expectations. That's why the words changed, the bar, the thresholds changed. So you wouldn't be able to do just an awesome cartwheel, you would have to do a cartwheel with a back handspring and then a back tuck and two jazz hands at the end to be able to get that exceeds. So this is science was a little behind. So this is the first time we have results from high school MCAS 2.0 for science. So that's why it's the 500 mark for meets and it's not the 260 like it used to be. But if a student took chemistry MCAS, which we had a couple, they didn't even move that to MCAS 2.0. So yes, the measures declined. It declined across the state. So we need to wait until the new targets are set with this MCAS 2.0 because it is a different, you can't compare, it's not comparing apples to apples when it comes to the high school science scores. That's why if you look on the state charts, they won't compare the old MCAS. Does that make sense?
Good. It does. I think I'm just trying to figure out most of this. This chart is awesome. I love it. My concern is that since MCAS only covers 9 and or 10 and doesn't pick up 11 or 12, that we're not necessarily picking up achievement and growth from all grades.
So there's no growth on science.
Yeah.
Science is an end of course exam.
Right.
So what the science teachers look at are final exams, midterm, I mean, we have internal things to assess content. With this, it's our challenge to make sure that everything aligns. In our courses vertically, just like we are with other things.
So this is like for math, for instance, math only has MCAS for which years?
Grades 3 through
In the high school. So we're just measuring the high school performance, so it's just 10th grade scores.
It is, but it's a culmination of everything that you have done.
Okay.
So math and English, that's why you have the growth. They're achievement tests, they're not end of course exams. It's a little bit different, and I'm sorry to get to you.
No, it's good. I guess my only concern is we're kind of missing 11th and 12th achievement in this measure.
Yeah, it's certainly not perfect. I mean, the only way to catch that is for graduation rates. You're expected to get through and pass them.
Which is
You
why
graduate.
that's why
They get the catch.
Or rigorous coursework. So when we
Exactly.
look at that chart, the chart
The
with all the
rigorous
numbers
coursework will generally
will be
be
science,
most in
typically,
junior,
or
senior
math.
years, which aren't picked up by
Typically
MCAS.
junior and senior, all those.
It has to be, so rigorous coursework only measures juniors and seniors, it does not measure sophomores and freshmen.
Okay, I
So that's where we get our points, so it's not just MCAS for accountability, it's all those different measures of different things. Attendance is 9 through 12.
Okay, thank you.
But I still think, Bill, maybe we can, if you wanna spend some time thinking about like how to expand this goal. Like, I like the targetedness, I think we're gonna maybe risk losing some of that, but maybe not if there's a way to sort of build into this goal some outcomes that are not really MCAS specific. So that then when we are looking at this in May, we'll have a better idea, because May actually, I get the timing and why that makes sense from the school committee's perspective, but May actually isn't the end of the school year either. So we won't also have end of year data from anything. So
That's the challenge.
it's tough, like when you're talking about a really academic measure. I don't disagree. I guess what I'm thinking about, and again, sort of to Nicole's point, it just came to my head, is that I feel like what we've been talking about this entire night and previously is continuous ongoing feedback. And so what I would dream of is that at some point, it doesn't matter whether it's March, April, or May, we have enough internal data and knowledgeable people on the ground that can say, I know what's going on with this student. And so that's my hope, is so that I agree, I don't think it should be on the MCAS exclusively, but on some internal markers that we're using.
And by doing it in May, that will force us to do that. So, yeah, good advice. I'll get that to you and make sure that we have. And that will broaden our kind of our scope too. A little larger than MCAS. Thank you. I want to add one point too, because this reminds me of where we started with our budget and finance when I was hired, and just the transparency of it. So I want to thank, everybody that's going to read this, that, even though we see some red and all that, I want, the reason we are doing this is we have full confidence, like I started this out with the teaching staff, the leadership that we have in all our schools, but why now? That's because I'm very confident that these things, that we haven't had processes in place that we do now. And so I'm excited about it. I think that we'll see some growth here, and then we'll come up with some other measures, obviously, like Dr. Bukowski said, so that we can get to a place in this year, next year, and continue to have, like we do with the elementaries, benchmarking we can look at that are reliable and that can tell our story. So we're not waiting until the next year, which is not great.
Okay. Thank you very much, Superintendent Buckner. Okay, Policy Subcommittee. Ms. Islam and Ms. Fenwick.
Okay, so I don't know, do we have the text of this in the folder? Okay, so have you all seen this? Okay, so I think, basically what we wanted to do was to update the student absentee policy to clarify the language around what used to be called excused versus unexcused absences. Partly this is a policy response to some of the troubling data we've seen on student attendance, in that if parents and guardians are seeing that they have the ability to excuse an absence, it may feel like, oh, I've checked the box, I've done what I needed to do, my child was excused. When in fact, from the state perspective, when they're calculating our student attendance data, they don't care whether you had a doctor's appointment or you went to Disney World, you weren't in school. And that's the only thing that they're looking at. And so what we've attempted to do with the policy update is to change the language to verified or unverified absences, and we're asking parents and guardians to verify a child's absence, which I think is a practice we want parents to be doing anyway, so that we all know where children are during the day, we know what kids are accounted for. But also we're hoping that that helps to clarify that there is no such thing as an excused absence. We do have a policy for children who are having longer term medical needs or things like that, where they get special tutoring, and there's a whole kind of category for that. But this is just for the everyday, going to the dentist, feeling sick, whatever it is. And so, I don't know, Janice, if you would add anything else. I think we definitely want to get a lot of feedback on this, both from the committee and from parents, because we want to make sure that this feels clear and that we're getting it right. So.
I think you pretty much explained why we're looking at this policy.
Heidi, do you want to add anything else? Ms. Driscoll, did I get everything? I don't know if there's anything else I missed from your perspective.
You definitely didn't miss anything, but I want to emphasize the reason why we might want to change the language from excused to verified is not because of an accountability chart. It's because we as responsible educators need to be aware of the amount of time of learning every single child has had. And we want to be very clear and communicate, principals want this, teachers want this, communicate, if you are not in school learning, then you will be behind. There's nothing that replaces that face-to-face instruction. So this might be able to help us clarify and be realistic about, communicating absences.
I want to just add to that. Obviously, we heard a lot of, pretty much every speaker that talked tonight talked about our issue with absenteeism. So I just want to reach out to our community and parents and caregivers out there that we really need your help with this, and it is a change in culture. So it's, for example, I just think people run into the understanding that, because the policy says so, and rightfully so, this will be a shift. So we just want people to know the why. Is that if I take my kids on a vacation this week, but I write a note in advance, that's excused. And that's kind of, and it's not. I think we have to really hit home that DESE, unless it's a medical excuse, long-term, and you're getting tutoring, getting education, if you're not in, they count it as an absence. So I think we have to align by that if we want to raise the bar, because there is no replacement for being in front of the teacher. And I also want to encourage folks that if they're having vacations to try to do them in the summer or on holidays, because I met with another principal today that we talked about, gave me about this same absentee, same principal I talked about, gave me examples that there's 2 or 3 families with multiple kids on vacation right now, and then each of those with kids in multiple grades ask the teachers for work for that week. So that creates an extra strain for the teacher to go and find extra work and do all, and it's not going to replicate what's happening in the classroom, but really causes a stressor for that. And it also creates a kind of an internal clash with our teachers, with some that are 30-year veterans that can get that work in 5 minutes, or being a little exaggerated, a half hour it's work. Where a newer teacher might not have, they're 1 week ahead and can't get that, and it will take them several hours to do that, and they won't do that. And so you've got this, well, that teacher did it, this teacher did it. That's what we're struggling with internally, changing that culture. So that's another system we want to clean up and just say, it's really important your kids are here in school, and just try to shift that culture. And I think this is a good starting point. So I want to thank the committee for taking this on. It's courageous, but it's also necessary. And I think the state, when I met with the commissioner last week, his whole theme was on chronic absenteeism across the state of Massachusetts and across the nation, and we're no different. It was a really big issue, #1 issue for the commissioner right now. And we see it's hitting us too. So this is a cry out to all the family members out there and I know we gave an example of tonight, I know our principals and teachers are working on it. And if we all work on it, it will certainly improve, and it has to improve. Thank you.
And then correct me if I'm wrong, Maria, but the last paragraph where it says parents, guardians will provide a written explanation to verify for the absence, it's really the only big change.
Yeah, I think the old policy said that they were still supposed to notify the school of absences. I think the difference is that it was referred to as therefore excused absence, and that's what we're trying to get away from. So yes, I think we're still expecting parents and guardians to notify the school in writing, yes. And I think this does, it's just a good reminder too that this was also in the old policy, that the school is supposed to notify the parent of any more than 5 absences. I don't know to the degree that was always happening. That can be hard to track and hard to sort of keep up with. But I do think that's something that would be important to revive and be sure that we're doing. Because I think sometimes parents can lose track too, and then before you know it, it's been a lot more than you realize. And I would also add to what you said, Bill, about the effect of absences. It also has an effect on the classroom when the kid returns. Because then as a teacher, you've got this mental running list of who missed which day and what did they miss, and you gotta make this up and make sure that they got this so that you can move on to the next. There's just a lot to keep track of in all phases for teachers.
Okay, so this is our first reading on this and vote next time?
Well, I think we're
Next time.
Oh.
Yeah.
But we would really invite, now that the vote is coming, we would really at this point absolutely want to hear from any community members, parents, guardians, if they have questions, feedback, anything else we can further clarify, because we don't want to have to keep doing this. We'd like to do this once. And so, yes, if anyone has any comments or, I think that's a case where we would love emails between now and our next meeting, so we can hear some of that feedback before we vote.
All right. Okay. All right, we have 2 different sets of minutes for approval tonight, one from October 2nd and one from October 10th. Any questions or changes? Comments? If not, take a motion on each of those.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from October 2nd, 2023 as presented.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion that the school committee approve the October 10th, 2023 minutes.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Warrants for tonight?
We're caught up.
I like that. And no correspondences, other business. Or future agenda items at this time.
Based on public comment around the sailing team, I, for one, would just like more education on that topic. I wrote down lots of questions, so I don't know if that means, do we invite the AD to come? Do we have Bill talk about, I don't know who the right person is, but I'm just wondering about things like how do you achieve varsity status? What does that mean? What does it look like? I'd like to hear more details about all the things that keep the sailing team going before we can even weigh in on the questions that were raised tonight. At least that's how I feel.
Similarly, the transportation, I don't know how any team gets anywhere, so I'm curious if
Fair
it's
enough.
only a sailing problem or transportation.
Yeah, I can get to the bottom of that and have that all ironed out and presented to you.
Yeah, just
Hopefully
like
for the next
story.
meeting.
I agree, and I think it does involve, it's an interesting one, because it does involve some town building space as well, and
That one's
it's an
very unique.
ongoing challenge,
So,
yeah.
So it's good that we need to iron it out and get it rectified, because even Coach brought up some older dates where it predated some of us, all of us here, I think, so.
Yeah.
Let's get that all updated and cleaned up, and we'll get it back to you, tightened up and ready to go.
Sailing is a spring sport,
Correct.
right?
We got that. We are doing budgets now, so it's important.
Yeah.
to find out.
Absolutely. Okay, if there is nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 8:24.
Okay, all in favor?